Now are we sideways? Are we sideways now? Should we turn this
Let
around?
me look.
Because I think we might be side.
Oh, because when Shaka
That's-
comes on,
yeah.
how does that work?
Mm-hmm.
I think we usually do it where we're
Oh,
vertical.
you are sideways.
We're side. So should we turn?
Okay, here we go.
There we go.
All
All
right, I
right.
promise. Shout out
All
to
right.
Babyface and Teddy Riley. This is not. We're gonna get it together. We're gonna get it together over here
Yes.
now. We sideways.
I
Y'all
see
know
my
we a
boy
little.
Jorge's in here.
What's up, Jorge?
Jorge's an
Okay, I feel
attorney.
like we're a little overexposed again for some reason. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, I
Make
need
sure
to
you're in it though.
I
There
need
you
to be
go.
in it, child.
Yeah, we got to put those
They need to
cheekbones
see
in
these
there.
cheekbones.
Yeah. Make sure.
Overexposed again. Okay. All right.
What's up? All
I think
right.
we're overexposed.
Are we overexposed?
No, you're okay now.
We're okay.
We are?
Okay.
Okay, we look good. Okay.
There we go. All right.
All right, perfect.
There
How you
You
guys?
just shining, baby. That's what it is. Yes.
I'm glowing. This
Yes.
is the love.
Yes.
Hi, you guys. It's me, Cynthia Bailey, and I'm here with my fiance, Mike
Yes.
Hill. And I'm so excited to talk to you guys today. This is the first time I've actually used my platform to talk about something so important.
Yes.
And when I was contacted about this, I was like, wow, what am I going to have to say about this? And I started doing my research and I started thinking about it. And I was like, wait a minute. We're talking about our brothers and sisters that are incarcerated
Mm-hmm.
and what their basic human rights are during this time of COVID-19.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, and I definitely have family. Please give me some hearts if you guys have family members or friends that are incarcerated right now during
Yes.
this very, very trying time.
Or you know someone.
Or you know somebody.
Yes.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing, as a parent, if my child is not incarcerated, but if she was, I would be very concerned about her health right now while she was trying to serve out her sentence.
Right.
So Mike Hill is going to help me co-host. You know, he's usually the host for the most, doing the most.
I don't mind being the co-host. I love using this platform for.
And y'all know I can lose focus now.
No, it's okay. No. You know,
He's gonna keep me on track.
She could be a little bit long-winded. You know, she could be
Long-winded?
she could be a scuba diver sometime. That's okay.
hot
She can
meat
hold
Kelly.
her breath. That's okay. That's
Hot
all.
meat
But
Kelly.
that's fine. When you got something to say and you got something meaningful to say, it's
Yes.
really important. And when you use your platform for good, like we're doing right now, this is what's really important. I think, like she said, this is something that's really meaningful to both of us. I've shared many times that my father was incarcerated the last 9 years of his life, for murder for hire or whatnot. But I know that there was some good that was on the inside of him, and I know the conditions that he was in while he was in there. And like she said, during these times of what we're going through with this pandemic, COVID-19, it's impossible for these incarcerated people to right now be practicing social distancing. So we need to make sure that they have the proper conditions on the inside as
Right.
well.
And how does that even work? Like, I can't wait to talk to Shaka because I'm thinking, honestly, if I got a fever tomorrow
Right.
and started coughing and, experiencing the symptoms of COVID-19, honestly, still at this point, I'm not even really clear where to go get a test.
Right.
Or how sick I would have to be to get tested.
Right.
Now, if I was in prison, and I know, and we're going to get to that, there's definitely some issues in prison because there's no social distancing in prison because they can't.
Right.
They're in prison. The sanitation, proper sanitation, like that's, that's not going to be, they're not disinfecting like they probably should be in prison. So, protective wear. We don't go anywhere without gloves and masks. So I'm just trying to figure out how does testing work there. I really can't wait to talk to Shaka about that because I don't even know where to get a test. So make sure you guys just stay tuned because we also have a special announcement at the end of the conversation.
Who knows, man? You're kind of baggy right here.
Do we have a
Maybe
lot
that's
of people
special
with
announcement.
friends and family that are incarcerated? I need some hearts.
Put those fists in the air if you got people that you know that have been incarcerated or family members who are
Yeah, give us
incarcerated
some
right
fists.
now.
Let's
So it's
put
not
some
just
hearts
about
and some fists.
right now, the conditions right now, but it's also Represent Justice talks about the inequalities in the criminal justice system right now. And everybody's talking about criminal justice reform. You hear all the politicians talking about it right now. And it's very meaningful because they know that is very important right now, especially in our community where there are so many disparities when it comes to the amount of convictions and the amount of sentencing and how much we get more severe sentencing than our white counterparts and whatnot. So it's not just about the conditions, but about the brothers and sisters who actually have to go to prison. Because
and I'm glad you said sisters, because a lot of times when people think of prison, and I, even as a woman, I forget about our sisters that are in prison. A lot of moms and daughters, and there's a lot of women that are actually in prison as well. Did you guys watch Just Mercy?
Yeah.
Please give us some fists, some hearts if you watched Just Mercy. If you have not watched it, I highly recommend that you guys watch that movie during this time of quarantine.
And Brian Stevenson continues to do excellent work trying to get innocent people out of prison. The Walter McMillan story. We actually just saw something on Netflix last night called The Innocence Project.
Yes.
You definitely need to check that out. So a lot of people are doing some great work to try and get a lot of people who have been convicted, wrongfully convicted, out of prison. But once again, the people who have been convicted that are incarcerated right now, we're caring about their living conditions too.
Right.
So we're trying to bring in Shaka Senghor. Let's bring him in.
Let's go ahead and bring Shaka in, because
I'm gonna try and do
Shaka
this myself, Kristen.
is amazing. I cannot wait to talk to him, and he's really more of an expert.
I don't think Shaka's on here yet. Okay.
On this
subject
more
he's on
so
the okay. Here
than
we
are.
He's on the rewrap. There.
We have lots of questions for him,
And he's got a great story.
And you guys text us questions, like you guys ask us questions as well that you would like to ask Shaka or us. Hi, Shaka.
Hey, how are you?
Good to see you. Shaka is an author. He wrote this Righting My Wrongs, Life, Death, Redemption, American Prison. He's also big on justice reform as an advocate. He just got, thank you, man, 100,000 masks donated to prisoners. So you're doing some great work after you spent 19 years incarcerated, turning your life around, man, and you're doing some great things now. So we're actually happy and honored to be talking to you today, my brother.
Very much so.
No, the honor is mutual, and I'm really excited about this conversation. So thank you both so much for using your platform to highlight a critical issue right now that's happening throughout the country and actually happening throughout the world. And so I think this is a great opportunity for us to really inform people about what's going on inside. And hopefully we can open up some hearts and minds so that people can really support Represent Justice and all the work that we're doing to try to, help the men and women on the inside right now. And it's really, we're basically facing a humanitarian crisis powder keg that's definitely going to blow up in our faces if we don't be responsive right now in the moment.
Right.
Throw up your fists if you represent justice right now, if you're watching online.
Yes, make sure
Tell us about that, because you actually, I saw you was on Instagram earlier today, and you actually spoke to somebody who's
one of your friends that's still incarcerated right now. What's happening in the prisons right now? How are they dealing with the pandemic there? Because like I was saying, jumped on Shaka, like they're still like, we're doing everything we can do on the outside, and I'm still not clear if I felt the symptoms tomorrow, where to even go get tested. How do they decide who gets a test? I know you mentioned in your live that some people have the virus already, some people are sick. So what is happening?
I mean, it's been devastating. As Mike, as you mentioned earlier on, I spent a total of 19 years in prison. 7 of those years was in solitary confinement. And so it's a very important and personal space for me because my friends are still in prison. Most of them have been in over 30 years. And so for the last 2 weeks, I've been taking calls literally around the clock from men inside, just kind of giving me the updates. They're sending me emails via JPay and just talking about what's happening. And so one of the things, just contextually for the audience, America has over 50 different prison systems. So they're all not the same, meaning that we have a federal system and then each state has individual systems. And so the level of care varies based on the proactive nature of the leadership in different prisons. So my friends I've mostly been talking to are in Michigan, and some of those prisons are the hotbeds for just the rampant growth of the virus spread inside. And they're very scared. Last Sunday, I took about 6 calls. And for the first time in the 10 years since I've been out, was I hearing this level of fear and desperation in the voices of friends. And so they're unable to socially distance. In many cases, they don't have access to soap unless they have money on their accounts to buy it. They are being limited to a few rolls of toilet paper every 2 weeks. But the biggest thing is that they're really in these congested environments, right? And it's one of the reasons we're calling for governors all across the country to do compassionate releases, let people out who aren't a threat to society, who can readapt to the community, and that it doesn't leave them in this vulnerable position to die from a virus when we have the opportunity to prevent it. So very scary times on the inside. Sometimes they're housed two to a cell, but it can be up to 30 in one cubicle space, meaning that if you just were to stand in your bunk and spread your arms out, you're touching somebody. And we've seen videos coming out of prison where people are gravely ill and being deeply impacted in a way that's scary, frightening, and really inhumane.
Right, and they don't. Are they giving them masks? Are they walking around with gloves on like we are? Like, are they supplied with that type of protective gear in prison?
Only in some instances. I mean, we were really fortunate to be able to raise, money to get 100,000 masks into like Rikers Island and, a few of the county jails in Tennessee and a prison in Parchman, Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
And in some instances, they don't have anything. So it's all over the place right now. And what we're trying to do is be very proactive. I'm reaching out to my network of donors who are identifying organizations who are doing the work. We rep Justice, Justice, Reform Justice, all these incredible organizations, ARC, Anti-Recidivism Coalition, Cut 50, Reform Alliance, people who have been in the trenches for years trying to turn this thing around. And we're just coming together and pooling resources and figuring out what prisons or jails are going to allow us access to deliver. Just the other day, Anti-Recidivism Coalition delivered about 40,000 bars of soap. And so it's the basics that we're trying to get to people, and that's what we really want the audience to understand.
You talked about Parchman, and Parchman down in Mississippi have had issues long even before COVID-19. We've been talking about that a lot on my show there. But you also talked about the early release, and they're allowing some early releases for certain people, but not other people. How is that decided when it comes to who gets out for this COVID-19 situation that we're going through?
And also, is the elderly and the more vulnerable prisoners, are they getting any consideration in terms of any type of release or early release?
No, those are two great questions. And one of the things I have a big concern with the language that's been used around violent versus non-violent. If only consideration that we're giving to people who are identified as non-violent, then you leave this whole other segment basically saying that they're worthy of dying, right? And if that was the case, if I was still in prison, I wouldn't have been considered for a compassionate release. And for those who follow my work, I've been out for 10 years. And what I've been able to do as a result of just having supportive community has been immeasurable in terms of my contributions to inner city high schools, to mentoring, to being a writer, to speaking on various platforms. And that would have been snuffed out by the inability for people to not play polite politics and hide behind the safety of these designations of violent versus non-violent. The reality is these are all human beings, their mothers, their fathers, their sisters, their brothers, and they're loved ones of somebody. And no one should be left to suffer at the hands of the state's inability to come up with proactive responses to a crisis. And that's basically what we're saying, is that if they're not responding based on the most humane aspect of how you treat human beings who are mostly vulnerable, then we're not doing our job. And so it's really scary to think that politics are starting to come into play, where people are paying fear-based politics. And it's proven numerically that people who have served considerable amount of time are the least likely to reoffend, least likely to be back in. And so there's an argument for just thinking about how do we acknowledge the ability of people re-enter society healthy and whole based on what they're doing on the inside as they prepare to come out and be supported by family and loved ones. And as it relates to the elders, I was talking to a friend, he served 47 years in prison. And he just got out a week ago. Well, he was scheduled to get out a week ago. I'm waiting to hear back from him. But it's really scary to think that there are a lot of elders in our prisons, an aging population, based on that war of drugs that arrested people in the late 80s, early 90s, and who now have 30, 40 years in, and definitely not a threat to society. And they should be really considered seriously.
Right. You had brought up mothers and fathers. Just speaking to that, so just so that we're all clear, because I actually didn't know this, they are not allowed, the prisoners are not allowed any visitation at this time, right? Like if I was a mother and I had, my child was incarcerated, I could not visit them at this time. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the scary thing. I do, it's one of those things that tugs at your heartstring, right? Because you want family members to be able to go see what's going on with their loved ones, to check in on them. but also, you know, in terms of a contained environment, it's really hard to make that decision knowing that visitors could possibly be carriers of the virus. So I think that was smart. You know, it's hard to manage, but I think just logistically and from a health perspective, but I also think that they should be putting in other means, more access to phone calls, more access to video conferencing, specifically during these times, just so people can know that their loved ones, because I mean, I'm getting a ton of calls and inboxes and DMs from people who are saying, hey, I haven't heard from my loved one in weeks, and I'm really concerned about their health and well-being. So really sensitive to that as well.
Well, thank you for your comments. Everybody continue to chime in with those comments and your questions and whatnot. We're seeing a lot of people. Somebody even put up, has anyone reached out to Dove, Dow, some of the soap companies to maybe even make those donations? We're asking you to continue to make donations by going to the link below, representjustice.org, because definitely need your help with this situation. But what more can we do? I know the politicians have been talking about, you know, police reform and all that type of stuff, and criminal reform and conditions in prison. We got to hold them accountable for that in November. But right now we have this issue that we have to do something about. So talk to the people right now that are listening and tell them what they can do right now to help this situation.
Yeah, I think that one of the most important and most proactive things right now we can do is contact your governors, contact your sheriffs, tell them to protect people on the inside. It is in the best interest of society as a whole, and there's ways that they can mitigate those things. So
I'm sorry, Shaka, how can we force them to listen? Because we can talk to them and they can act like they don't hear. How can we make sure that they're hearing us and force them to listen, to put that type of pressure on them? Because we know when they're under pressure, things get done.
No, I think we have to use our social media platforms and continue to talk about this publicly and not let people off the hook, right? So one of the things I've been doing whenever I go live, I record my guys' conversations so that people can hear directly from them. But I think if you're calling your governor, calling your sheriffs, really call them and do it in real time on social media so we can hear, we can follow up calls, we can flood those emails, because I think it's really important. And of course, supporting organizations like Represent Justice, because that funding goes toward us expanding capacity to help and support and get these calls and get that information out.
Right. I'm glad you said that. That was one of the main reasons why I wanted to use my platform to have this important conversation. Again, this is the first time, honestly, that I've actually used my platform for this specific issue. And I want to make sure all the people that follow me are just aware, you know, that they are aware of what's going on and what's happening.
And it's been happening for a long time. So we definitely want everybody involved. Please continue to put those comments out there. As a matter of fact, the first 10 people to donate to werepresentjustice.org, you're going to get one of these free hoodies. And we're going to actually match your donations, Cynthia and I, up to $500. So we're going to try and do our part, not just with our platform, but with our money, and continue to use our voices, because this is something that's really near and dear to me. I don't know if you heard me, Shaka, but you know, my father was in prison for the last 9 years of his life for murder for hire. Now, he admitted that he did some things, whatnot, but I understand that he was a good person. I've seen comments in here, and I know there are going to be people in here that don't really care too much about the incarcerated, but tell them why they should.
Well, thank you so much, first of all, for sharing your father's story. And I think the voices of children who have parents incarcerated is underrepresented in these conversations. So thank you so much for just your open and transparency around it. I mean, the reality is over 90% of people who are incarcerated will return to our community at some point. And we have a conscious choice of how they return. Do they return as healthy, whole, full human beings because they've been supported by us in their rehabilitation efforts? Or do they return as broken human beings because we've ignored the barbaric and inhumane treatments in that environment? I can tell you I was really fortunate that I met some of the most incredible mentors. These are men who are currently dying in prison. They fed me books. We had deep, conversation, and they prepared me for life on the outside. Without that type of support and that level of commitment to my rehabilitation, I wouldn't be the man that I am today. I started off as an honor roll scholarship kid. I could have been anything in the world, but I was also growing up in an abusive environment. And when I ran away, as many young people, and that's what people forget, a lot of us go to prison when we're really young, I was exploited within the drug culture by adults who only saw me as a tool to get to whatever it was they were trying to accomplish. And once you're in that cycle and you're a vulnerable kid and you're looking for love and acceptance,
Right.
then that gets exploited, gets taken advantage of. And even those of us who've been in prison, we call it a young man's sport for a reason, because you're typically likely to make these decisions when you're young. And so the reality is over 90% of people are coming back. We have a responsibility how they come back. And if we're failing in that responsibility, we can't be critical when they come back the same way that they went in, because we failed in our job to do
Right.
to ensure that they come home healthy and whole. But Mike, there was something that I really wanted to talk about, because I think another connecting point is our military veterans returning to society, right? And they're coming back with PTSD, and it mirrors the PTSD that a lot of young people who end up, caught up in the judicial system experience. And in your experience and expertise, like, how do you see those parallels, and what are some connecting points that people can see to really humanize both of these issues?
Well, I personally believe, and I just wrote a book about traumas and going through a lot of things in our lives, especially as African American men. We don't go and get the help that we need when we go through certain traumas in our lives, things that have been affecting us for a long period of time. We just think that, okay, a person might be a little touchy, may have gone through something. We take a lot of things to Jesus, which we should. But at the same time, we need to be able to talk to somebody. I believe that if you've gone to war, which I was in the military during wartime, and I've seen people go through certain things. I've known people who are Vietnam veterans and whatnot, who, when they came back home when I was younger, they didn't get the necessary help that they needed. They just kind of looked at them as a little touched, or he had Agent Orange or whatnot, but they didn't go and necessarily get the help that they needed. And I look at the same situation that you guys have gone through as formerly incarcerated people, being locked up, being told what to do, being in those poor conditions, and being conditioned with a certain mindset. And we talked about the recidivism instead of the rehabilitation part of it. That is the key part of it. So I see those similarities, where if you don't come out and you don't get the rehabilitation while you're in, and you don't come out and get the help necessary after you get out, it could be grounds for disaster and grounds for you going back in there as well.
Absolutely. So Cynthia, like your platform is incredible, and really, reaches a lot of people. And one of the things that I was thinking about is that, people are going to give you all type of feedback, like, why do people believe, deserve second chances? Why should we care? Like, in your experience, like, what do you think about second chances? I mean, like, on paper, some of us have committed very serious crime. Like, I was convicted of second-degree murder, right? And what does that mean to you in this moment in time on your platform where the world is watching? What do you think about second chances and how it's playing out now?
Right. That's a great question. I absolutely 100% believe in second chances. I think that, no one's perfect. People are sometimes, like you were speaking about earlier, are, products of their environment. I don't think, as a mother, I have a good kid, but I can't say that she couldn't get in trouble and something could happen to her that could land her in prison. So with that said, this is something that it's one of those situations where, I feel like when it hits home, when it really comes into your house and your family. And I actually have a family member. I have a first cousin who's, was sentenced to life in prison. He's been in prison his whole life. I forgot how old he was when he went, but he was quite young. He was I don't even think he was in his 20s yet. And with that said, I am very concerned. He has to do his time, but I mean, there's a lot of discrepancies with even his whole case, like getting back to the just mercy thing, but I won't get into all of that, but I'll just say that he still has the right to serve out his sentence and not have the risk of getting corona. So, everybody still has the basic right to human decency and dignity, regardless if they're incarcerated or not, because like I was going to say, or like I was saying, this could happen to anybody. Could end up in prison for whatever reason. There's a lot of ways that you can break the law and end up being incarcerated. And when you are, you still have the right to go in and try to serve your sentence and come out on the other side a better person, if that's what you plan on doing, and not be at risk of getting COVID-19 while you're trying to do that.
And think about this as well. There are a lot of people out there, a lot of people who are incarcerated right now who did not do anything.
Absolutely.
There are a lot of wrongfully convicted people, men and women, black and white, who have gone into the criminal justice system and didn't get a fair shake. A lot of them are poor because they didn't have the proper representation going in. So district attorneys and politicians were looking for numbers to fill these jails that are privately funded so that they can make money. There's a lot of things that go into it, and you know as well as I do, Shaka. Yeah, so you can look at the people who are in there and they're serving their time for something they did wrong, but you also have to look at the people who are in there who are innocent and just want to be back with their family, and their lives are literally being taken away year by year because of the criminal justice system did them wrong.
Right. We actually last night, Shaka. I don't know. Have you seen The Innocent Project on Netflix?
You know what? I haven't watched that doc yet, but I've worked with them actually directly before, so I'm super inspired by their work. They're just doing incredible work.
Mike and I started watching it last night, and I'm obsessed with it. I'm just amazed at the process. Like they were like convicting so many men, especially in the South, based on teeth mark.
And no other evidence.
But no other evidence. They found out that was like, they ended up releasing so many prisoners.
But after 18 and 20 years in prison.
Based on teeth mark evidence that was not correct.
And what about Rodney Reed, who was just executed in Texas? You know, Walter McMillan, what the Just Mercy was about. He was on death row. Like you said, solitary confinement and whatnot. I mean, these men are having, like you said, their freedom, their dignity, and their families have to suffer on the outside as well. They don't know how that contributes to society when it comes to the black community, because if that man is in prison and he was the breadwinner, then their families are suffering on the outside because they can't make meat. Right. So there has to be something done about this.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of the things that make Brian Stevenson, I heard you mention him, he's a hero of mine. I mean, the work that he's done has been incredible, and it was great for Just Mercy to come out so people can really go behind how so many people end up on death row. And you know, the work that Brian has been doing has been incredible, and something that we have to, you know, really lift that work up and by continue to share, you know, these stories, because there are so many people who are innocent. And then there's a whole another class of people that what I like to get people to is this real molecular level, right? Because most people think it's just robbery, bandits, you know, robbery, you know, murder, rape, mayhem that consists of the people who are incarcerated. But the reality is, if you don't pay child support, you can end up in prison. If you get too many DUIs, you can end up in prison.
Right.
If you get out on probation, as in Meek Mill's case, and you have a technical parole violation, which means you didn't show up to see your PO on time, or whatever the case, you wasn't able to pay fines, you can literally end up in prison for things that a lot of people do every day, right? And so, you know, I've talked to many people where they say, you know, you can go on the average college campus and it's probably way more drugs than in the hood. But then you'll have somebody in the hood get arrested for, you know, copious amounts of weed or something like that.
Right.
And then they're in prison for life. And so, you know, prison consists of all type of people. There's women in prison who are giving birth under these conditions that we're not talking about and thinking about. Like, what is that like to be in that environment where you're giving birth with the fear of this virus and the possibility that your child will be snatched away and you don't even know about their health and well-being? And so these are real realities. These are humane conditions that we have to address, the inhumanity of it all, and really have people focus on. And so, you know, again, using these platforms are incredible, and I'm thankful for you both for having this conversation.
Well, if you're just joining us, by the way, we're on Influential Justice, Represent Justice, using this platform. Mike and Cynthia are talking to Shaka Senghor, formerly incarcerated, who's turned his life around, who's a big advocate for criminal justice reform right now. So we're talking about his journey and, of course, the COVID-19 situation that's going on in the prisons right now, and the bad conditions even before this pandemic hit us, whatnot, and we're trying to do something about that as well. I'm really curious about, I'm interested in your story. Like you said, you spent 19 years in prison for a homicide. You got out, turned your life around. But a lot of people want to know, what was that like, that switch that helped you to rehabilitate, to turn your life around and become the man that you are today?
So real quickly, there were three things that happened that I call my three miracles. One, I met some of the most incredible mentors in my life. These men are currently dying in prison. They've been in prison for, you know, well over 30 years. But they fed me books, man. They introduced me to Donald Goins first. And then Donald Goins opened up for me to read Malcolm X, and that just opened up the world to me as a reader. And I eventually became a writer as a result of those early experiences. The second thing was I received a letter of forgiveness from the woman who raised the man whose life I'm responsible for taking. And when she sent me that letter, initially I wanted to ball that letter and throw it away, because she opened it up by telling me who David was. He was a father, he was a loved son, he was a really good friend to his friends. And just reading that and feeling the sense of responsibility and guilt, like I didn't want to deal with that. I was relatively early in my incarceration, and I didn't have the maturation to really process fully, what was happening. But something was like, continue reading this letter. And what she said to me in that letter was, despite the devastation I've caused her family, that she forgives me because this is what God would want her to do. And furthermore, she loves me. And I can tell you, I wasn't mature enough emotionally. I didn't even think I was worthy of such a gift. And so it took me a long time to really unpack that. But I kept that letter, and I would stay up late at night and I would read that letter over and over and over until I felt like, this was something I can fully receive. And then the final thing was, I was in solitary confinement. I got a letter from my son, and he was around 10 or 11 years old at the time. And he wrote me and he said, "My mom told me while you're in prison, Dad, for murder. Dad, don't kill. Jesus watches what you do." Wow. And, I wasn't religious then. I know I'm religious now. I'm very spiritual. But the power and wisdom of my son recognizing who I was at that point, it shattered the street toughness, the prison savvy, and it got to the core of what my responsibility was. And I knew that I owed my son a father. I didn't even know if I was getting out of prison then. I didn't know if I was getting out of solitary confinement then. But I knew that I had to begin to live my life in a way that honored my responsibility as a father. And what I believe as a man is, when you make a poor decision, you make a mistake, or however you choose to frame it, you have a responsibility to rectify that in a way that honors, the children that you bring into this world. And so as a dad, I now have a younger son who's 8 years old. I talk to him about these issues. It's important for him to understand who I am contextually, the fullness of when I was at my lowest point in life, but also for him to understand the process and the hard work and effort and energy that it took to get to a different space. And so, it didn't come without those 3 miracles happening. And it's something that I cherish, I'm reminded of. I talk to those mentors today. The greatest feeling I have in the world is when they call me from prison and say, "I'm proud of you because you honored your word as a man, and you came out here and you did what you said you was coming to do." And so I'm forever indebted to them. I'm forever in service of the many men and women who just need some inspiration, need somebody they can look to say, you know what, if this person turned it around, I'm fully capable. I just have to have the willpower and the belief that I'm worthy of it, because worthiness is the only determining factor of whether you go back to an old lifestyle or whether you choose to do something new.
That's right. Well, when you asked me the question about second chances, it certainly sounded like that letter was very instrumental in having that second chance. We have some people that want to take some questions. I want you guys to continue to give us some hearts if you can relate to any of the things that Mike and myself and Shaka are talking about. If you have friends or family that are incarcerated, if you can relate to this conversation in any way, please do not forget to donate. Do whatever you can for this very, very important cause. Continue to make sure you follow Shaka. Make sure you guys follow We at Justice. We Rep Justice. I'm very, very happy to be having this conversation with you guys, along with my fiance, Mike Hill, because again, when it hits home, that's when it becomes real. And as a mother, I just want to share this, and we are going to take questions. I remember when I was teaching my daughter how to drive a car. And I remember the first day that she drove off by herself, and the whole thing, I kept telling her before she drove, I was like, "No, I'll make sure you're careful, make sure you're this," because what the reality is, once my child is in my house in a car, if she runs over a kid in our neighborhood, driving too fast, blasting, you don't know what can happen.
Absolutely.
To our kids. Like, once they go out into the world, they could do a lot of dumb shit. They could do anything that could land them in prison. And that's just the reality. And then that's when it really hits home. So I said all that to say that I am very happy that I'm using my platform to talk about this, because just because it hasn't hit my home yet doesn't mean that it can't hit home.
Right. It can happen to anybody.
And it can happen to all of us. And we all deserve, again, the right to human dignity. We all deserve to be healthy and to be safe. And a prison sentence should not mean that you should be at risk of COVID-19 because you are trying to serve out your time and come out better on the other side. So you guys, please make sure you, if you have questions, we're going to start taking some questions. The first 10 people to donate and follow at We Rep Justice will receive a present. You can get this cute hoodie that we're rocking right now.
Hoodies.
Yes, I love these hoodies.
So
I got the fly kicks on the match.
It breathes too because it's hot, and I still I'm not even sweating. It's good.
Right.
It's good material.
Yeah.
And of course, we're going to match all the donations up to $500 as well. But we're going to continue to, even after this, we're going to continue to use our platforms to make sure that we get the word out and the message out about our brothers and sisters and everybody that is in the prison system right now, and make sure that we stop going to prison. Because the sentencing is just incredible. I mean, the disparity when it comes to how often we get convicted versus our white counterparts. I saw research 7 times more likely to be convicted for murder than our white counterparts and whatnot. Not that, you know, anybody deserves to go to prison if they're innocent or whatnot, but at the same time, it's like there is a disparity in our community that we cannot ignore. Regardless if it's happening in your family or not, because it can happen to you and it can touch you.
Absolutely.
Should we take some questions? How are you guys handling quarantining out there?
Oh man. Yes.
Yeah, how are you handling it?
Oh,
yeah.
Shaka, how are you handling it? Well, anyone else, if you want to comment.
Yeah.
How are you guys handling it? And Shaka, we want to specifically know how you are handling it.
No, that's a great question.
Are you in New York? Or are you?
I'm actually in LA. So I'm in LA. I'm from Detroit, but I live in LA now. I've been out here for about 4 years. So I have an 8-year-old son. And I share custody with his mom. So he's with me today. He'll go back to his mom later on today. So I've just been spending a lot of time with my son and just building. And, you know, I tell people, like, don't stress yourself out trying to be too structured. So, you know, he's doing schoolwork sometime, but we're spending just a lot of time vibing, and we go out back and shoot hoops, and, you know, we're in the pool, and just a lot of really important daddy-son time. And then when I'm not with him, when he's not with me, I'm working on creative projects. I'm a writer, so that's what I do. That's my therapy is, you know, I'm writing. I got a few things, new book coming out I'm excited about. So that's what's been keeping me busy, just some real focused time and just connecting with friends. And I've been able to really sit. I travel a lot as a speaker and things like that. So being able to sit still, I've been able to connect with my friends on every platform you can think of. So that's how I've been handling. And how have you guys been doing? You have kids and things like that. How's that been going?
We got good days and bad days.
Shaka, brother. Look, I can never even compare to being incarcerated. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm in the house with 5 women right now.
Woo!
Please pray for me, brother.
Sending you prayers, brother.
No, it's a blessing, man. It really is. Yeah. Everybody's healthy, so I can't complain about that at all.
Yeah.
At all.
No, we're definitely making it work. I mean, I'm the kind of person, I used to always, you know, think that, oh, you know, I'm kind of a loner. I'm kind of good being, you know, I travel a lot for work. Normally I'd be on the road. So I spend a lot of time alone. So I'm kind of used to being isolated to some degree and not really being around a bunch of people. But let's just say I'm ready to see some other people other than
right.
the house.
Yes.
Yeah, I can listen.
It's time to get away.
I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
My place at this point is going to Costco with Mike. So
yeah.
It's like, I got to, like, you know, I'm looking forward to coming out on the other side. But we have to take some questions at some point as well, you guys, because they keep asking. This is an audience. All right, so here's a question that someone asked. What is that, Mike?
What are we doing to stay sane, active?
Oh,
Nobody said anything about staying sane.
Right. That's a great question. A few weeks ago, right before all the states started kind of going into lockdown, I wrote this piece about things I learned in solitary confinement to help you manage quarantine. And basically it was 8 things, you know, it's exercise, and it's write that book that you've been wanting to write letters. You know, a lot of people forget about our elders during these times that aren't as tech savvy as we are. And it's really thoughtful to write letters to them. Meditation, making it simple, you know, tracking your breath, 5 counts in, 5 counts out.
That's right.
You know, so I wrote that piece on Medium, and we'll post it later and share with people. But there's a ton of things that we can do
Right.
during this time to really read a lot. You know, I got a bunch of books
Oh
behind me,
yeah, no, I
so
see. I see your whole library
Yes.
behind.
yeah,
But
I've
you
been
know, I
getting my
want to
read
interject
on.
really
So
quickly. I want to interject because I actually watch a lot of prison movies, Shaka.
mm,
And when I learned that you were, for some of your sentence, you were in solitary confinement for 7 years, I believe, right?
yeah,
4.5 straight at one point.
yes, yeah.
I just have to ask you this: how did you
Speaking of sanity,
get through
yeah,
7 years being inside? I mean, is it like what it is on TV? Or is
It's
it not
probably
exactly?
It's
Or
probably
is it
worse
worse?
though. It's worse. It's the most egregious, barbaric environment, you know, imaginable, because of the level of mental illness, and people don't really think about how many mentally ill people end up in solitary for very long periods of time. I can honestly tell you, I was super fortunate that I was literate, and books saved my life because I was able to read books that made me question things about life, you know. And then I started journaling. I started writing down, like, you know, how did I get here? You know, I asked myself this one question: how did I go from a kid with dreams of being a doctor to serving out my most promising years in this environment? And I began to journal and write about it, and write about all the pain and deal with it. You know, it's very difficult. But one of the things that I learned is that if you can get through the moment, just the moment, you can come out on the other side, because oftentimes we live in two places we don't control: the past, which no longer exists, a future that hasn't arrived. So we only have the moment. And so my focus would be, let me just get, you know, through the pain of the moment. And that means I had to acknowledge the bad days when I was depressed and when it hurt like hell. But if I can get through that moment, I can come out on the other side. And so books saved my life, writing saved my life. And it's why I'm so passionate about writing and story sharing as a person now.
and we're so inspired by you, man. I got a question here from Mama and Nurse, actually, and it's a good question. What's the most important thing we can do for prisoners to inspire them? Because they need inspiration. They
Yeah.
need that growth.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing for us, you know, when you think about Malcolm X's memoir and what that means to so many guys inside, is being able to see a model of what's possible, right? When you can see the other side of where your current conditions, and it has to come from credible messengers, right? So, for example, Anti-Recidivism Coalition has a group called the Redemption Team. 8 to 9 former men who were formerly serving life sentences go back inside. And so when people see that, they know that there is hope. So the greatest gift we can give anybody inside is hope that when they come out on the other side, we're going to love on them, we're going to support them, we're going to hold them accountable, but it's going to be through love and through discipline and real support. But they got to have that sense of hope.
Right. What are someone just asked the question, what are some of the books? I love that you basically are pretty much saying reading books pretty much
Absolutely.
change your
Yeah.
life. What are some of the books that you could recommend to some of the young, I was going to say brothers, but brothers and sisters? I know you mentioned
Absolutely.
Malcolm X, which is a very powerful book that affected my life when I read
Yeah.
it when I was younger, and that changed my whole mindset and life. So what are some other books that you can recommend to brothers and sisters? We got girls over here and they need to
Absolutely.
read some of this stuff too, because we're trying to
So my biggest readership are actually women. So that's my book set. Women sisters buy those books. Sometimes they buy them for themselves to understand their sons and, you know, their loved ones and things like that. But, you know, I recommend Asada Shakur. That's one of my favorite books. Any of Angela Davis books are highly recommended. Autobiography of Malcolm X, As a Man Thinketh, James Allen's about 68 pages. One of the most powerful books I've ever read. New Earth, Eckhart Tolle, especially during these times. The Power of Now. Like really therapeutic books. Think and Grow Rich, a Black choice, very specifically that one. You can read both versions, but I love that one because it's our stories wrapped in all this wisdom. Of course, you know, I highly recommend reading Righting My Wrongs. I always give people kind of a cheat code. It's free on Audible if you got a new account. If you already got an Audible account, you know how to get a new account. Get
Right.
that free version, and I actually read it myself. So I haven't been pushing people to buy the book. Get the free version. But I think those books are life-changing for me. And I love philosophy. I think the ideas that were exhibited in philosophy, so Plato's Republic, it really sharpened. You know, of course, we know they jacked it from, you know, our ancestors, but wisdom is wisdom. Take it for what it is. But those are some of the highly recommended books. Oh, Michelle Alexander The New Jim Crow to me is the Bible on understanding criminal justice, period. So read that book and then watch 13th by Ava DuVernay.
Yes.
And that's like, those are like masterclass on understanding how we got here today.
Yeah, we're talking about all the different movies and whatnot, Central Park 5, whatnot, you know. So we're going to talk about it. I know we got to wrap up. Before we let you go, man, one last question, because it's all about labels sometimes. And sometimes when you do wrongs in your life, you get labeled. You know, I've done some things that I've admitted to and I've been labeled. But tell them how important it is not to buy into those labels that people put on you. Like, they always want to say you're a convict. You'll always be a convict, but not having that mindset of a convict once you're out.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for raising that. So I've been very intentional about saying, you know, men and women, brothers and sisters, uncles, aunts, because that's who these people are. Nobody's is held hostage to their worst moment, right? You know, if I think about, and I mean, I have people say this all the time, when you're a murderer or whatever, well, that means that would be an occupation that I did over and over. No, I actually committed an act of murder up under some very specific circumstances that are regrettable, that I am deeply remorseful for in a real way. But it's not who I am as a whole person. You know, I'm a father, I'm a dad, I'm a community activist, I'm a writer, I'm all these other things, right? And what I always ask people when I speak in front of audiences is raise your hand if you have done something that you regret and you find regrettable and you wish you could be forgiven for. And then I ask them, would you want to be judged for the rest of your life based solely on that moment? And it's a resounding no. And so then the follow-up thing is, why would you do that to other people? And so because over 96% are coming home, we have to be mindful that these are men and women who have been broken by circumstances that oftentimes we don't understand. It's the reason I wrote the book. I wanted them to understand how a kid goes from honor roll to scholarship to ending up in prison and then being able to come out on the other side of that. So thank you so much for asking that. And it's important, you know, when you check out Just Mercy and you follow the work of Brian Stevenson and you follow work like mine, Reform Alliance, and, you know, We Are Justice and all these, you know, We Rep Justice and all these orgs, you'll see a level of humanity that is unbelievable and unimaginable. And now we're in a space where we're telling these stories.
Absolutely.
Right. I want to know who else can relate. Who else? I need to see some hearts and some pound signs.
Yes, let's see them fists go
We
up.
all made mistakes.
Who's done things out there that you regret?
Yeah.
Let me see some hearts and some hands, some waves, something out there. Some kind of emoji, just letting us know that, you know, we all have done things that we regret. I actually was watching really quick. I know I've been watching a lot of TV. One of the other things I was watching on Netflix was How to Get Away with a Drug Scandal. And I'm amazed at the fact that a lot of the very, very smart women, and this is not necessarily a African-American issue that I'm bringing up, but these are like smart people that went to schools, like they were valedictorians and they went to the Harvards and they were studying chemistry and they ended up working in some of the crime labs. They're the people that actually test the drugs to see what the drugs are when you have to go to court or whatever. Anyway, long and short, I was amazed that some of these people actually ended up getting, the chemist ended up getting hooked on drugs, the drugs they were testing. They were literally doing crack and all kind of stuff, and they ended up in prison as well. So, you know, when we talk about incarceration, you never know. I mean, this is in everybody's.
And a lot of times it's just a sickness that needs to be taken care of. You know
Absolutely.
what? We could talk to you all day, my brother.
Yes.
Likewise.
Shaka, thank you so much. And when this is all over, please, can we get together and break bread? Because I want to talk to you more.
And he should come on Fox Soul.
Absolutely. I would love to have you
to
as a guest on my talk show as well.
This conversation should continue. And I have one more last thing I need to ask you before we go. We are so grateful for your time, but I need you to post a list of some of those books that we all need to read and some of these young folks need to read. Will you please post that and tag me in it so I can repost it to my followers?
Absolutely.
That is very valuable. And we got time to read right now. We're in a quarantine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I got you all for sure.
And I'm going to post that list. And again, we both appreciate you. We cannot wait to meet you in person. I am so inspired by your story. You make me want to be better. You know, the fact that you would come out, like when I listen to you speak and I see all the amazing work that you're doing, it just is, it's inspiring. And
Appreciate that.
Great. And I commend you and I congratulate you. And I'm so grateful that you are using your life story to help other people and to inspire other people. And God bless you for that.
Absolutely.
Like,
No,
I'm always hearing that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That means a lot from both you guys. Congratulations on the engagement. I'm really excited for you. That was some great news to really lighten the mood, and that's important.
I'm getting locked up.
Yeah, black love is no, right. Lock him down, lock the bro down. But black love is going to get us through this. Like, seriously, just seeing great representations of, you know, and that doesn't take away from other people's love, but it's so important for us to see us loving on us at this time. So thank you both. We definitely want people to make sure they hit their governors up, sheriffs, go to Represent Justice, donate. It's being matched. Please do that. We appreciate everybody who's joined us today. Love is love, y'all.
Thank you for your work, man. Thank you for everything you've done. God bless you, my brother, and we'll be talking to you soon.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you for all my amazing followers. Thank you guys for joining on this conversation.
All right. That was incredible. I mean, like, I ain't gonna lie. I got a little emotional just talking about that, thinking about that, because there are so many brothers and sisters right now who are in jail in terrible conditions that may have done something that was bad, but they're not bad people, and they need to have some kind of rehabilitation instead of just punishment. Right. You know, they're going through their punishment, but there's a rehabilitation part about this, so that they can come out better people. Right.
And be like a Shaka.
Exactly.
And be an inspiration and give back and try to, you know, keep other people from making some of the same mistakes that, you know, going down the road that he went down.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what it's all about.
Yeah. So please continue to donate. Once again, representjustice.org / Cynthia Bailey. First 10 people that do donate, you get one of these beautiful hoodies. And of course, we are matching your donations up to $500, and we will continue to
whatever you guys can get.
Yeah, whatever you can give, every bit helps. And your time. And once again, listen to what Shaka said, your time and just your voice being heard. Reach out to your politicians, your governors. Put pressure on these politicians, because
and social media too.
Change won't happen until we actually hold politicians accountable. And that's why it's so important to vote, and not just in the presidential election, but in your local elections. When you got to go and elect these judges who are on the bench that is causing you to go to prison for numerous years for a simple charge. So please do your part when it's time to do that. How do you donate? Go to representjustice.org / Cynthia Bailey, and we will do that. So thank you so much for everything.
Love and appreciate you guys. Donate whatever you can. Again, even social media, I'm going to be posting some things. You can repost, retweet, all those things. Just, you know, we want to use our platforms to, you know, inspire people and help people. And, you know, we're all in this together. This pandemic is affecting all of us. And if anything that I've learned is just brought all of us closer to each other as people. And now, like, there is no excuse. Like, you know, with my schedule was always like, I was always busy working. I've been able to connect and reconnect with so many people that are doing great things, because now I actually have time. But wait a minute, we have a special announcement.
Yeah, okay. So the special announcement is, like, people can change. You know, people can go through things. One of the reasons I asked them about, you know, having that label is because I've done some things in my life where, and you read the new book that I have coming out called Open Mic, you'll see in this book where it's not just about some of the infidelities or whatnot, but there are certain things that I did in my life that I don't even think my mom even knows about when I was a kid, that if I had been caught, I could have been incarcerated myself. Right. A lot of different things. You'll read it in the book, but it's just, I'm being very transparent about that type of stuff and the choices that I made. You know, God was looking out for me, because if I would have been caught, I would not be in the position that I am right now. So I understand that when you grow up, sometimes in a certain environment, you're around certain people, whatever, you can be influenced to do the wrong thing. So I totally get that. So my book, Open Mic, is coming out next month. We just had the cover release a couple of days ago, so you can check that out on our Instagram pages. So
give us some hearts. Did you guys see the Open Mic cover release? It was kind of hot. Now I don't know if you guys were expecting.
But there was some meaning behind it too.
Oh, but it definitely, and he breaks all it down on his Instagram. If you guys aren't following Mike, make sure you guys follow him at It's Mike Hill on his IG. The book will be available for pre-order soon, right?
Pre-sales next week.
We'll be talking about that as well.
Absolutely. So what we're doing now is, because if you donate, first 5 people that donate, 10 people, first 10 people that donate, I'm going to give you a signed copy, autographed copy of the book, Open Mic.
Good book.
Along with her signature and her autograph
Yes.
as well in the
Yes.
book, because she is on the back cover and she wrote the
Oh, I wrote the foreword.
she
I
wrote
wrote
the
the foreword.
Yeah.
And I need you guys, if you guys don't get it for no other reason than to read this foreword at this point, because I agonized over writing this foreword because
It's a long foreword.
Well,
She wrote half the book.
I had a lot to say.
She had a lot to say.
I had a lot to say.
Well, as you can tell.
I've known this man for 2 years, and you know, you guys don't see everything on the Real Housewives of Atlanta, but we've been through a lot. And
Yes.
First of all, I was honored. I've never written a foreword before, but the fact that he sat down and put pen to paper and literally made the choice to pour his heart out and be transparent about his life, be transparent with me about even infidelities, anything that he's going through in his through in his life, meant the world to me. I mean, I've been around for a minute, and you know, Mike is not the first one to do something, you know, that maybe he shouldn't have done. He's just the first one to admit and write a book about it, to try to inspire and help other young men know, you know what, you know, life is about choices. Make sure you know, be smart.
And mental health.
And mental health.
Yeah.
Mental health is very, very important. And you know, this book was for you. This helped you kind of, you know, put a lot of things to rest. You know, we all have a past. We all have our demons that we fight. And I think writing this book, and I say this in my foreword, had you not written this book, we would not be sitting here on this couch today doing this live, because I don't think we would be together.
Not at all. I wasn't ready. So I was going through a lot of demons. So check that out. Once again, the first 10 people to donate, representjustice.org. Not only do you get this hoodie, we will match your donations up to $500, and you will get an autographed, signed copy by both of us of my new book coming out, Open Mic. This is coming out next month. Pre-sales begin next week. This has been very inspiring, enlightening, actually just educational as well, and
emotional. I was getting very emotional at one point, just listening to Shaka and you sharing your stories, and like me even thinking about the idea, like just as a parent, like the fact if my own child ever was incarcerated and how I would deal with that, and if they were incarcerated now during this whole pandemic, and me having to work, not being able to visit them, and you know, them not having protective gear and can't social distance, like that would be, I can't imagine. My heart goes out to all the parents and the moms out there that are dealing with the situation and can't see their kids that are incarcerated right now.
Okay. Well, this has been a great time. Thank you so much for everybody that tuned in today. Once again, we want to encourage you to get involved. Please follow We Rep Justice and take action by donating today. Also, shout out to Plus One Society for all their work and what they're doing as well. Kristen Ingram's is doing a great job over there as well. So this will continue. I think they're going to do it again on Tuesday with George Hill, the NBA player.
Where's the link? The link is at the bottom.
And the link is at the bottom of our page, representjustice.org. You see it pinned right there, / Cynthia Bailey. Please continue to donate and do your part. We will continue to do this. We're not done with this. We're not done at all. We're using this platform. Yeah, because we're really passionate about that. Yeah. All right, babe.
Well, thank you so much. You were a great co-host, Mike.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. And please continue to watch and continue to support. Once again, go out there and follow right now. We represent justice.
Stay safe, stay healthy, and you guys have a